All right, I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. The August 1st edition of the Site Plan Subcommittee or Site Plan Subcommittee meeting. Meeting is on Zoom and YouTube. We've got one item on the agenda tonight, and how about a roll call of commission members?
Thank you. Commissioner Helfrey.
Here.
Commissioner Ward. Commissioner Broyles.
Here.
Commissioner Clayton.
Here.
Commissioner Deppler. Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Cohn. Ms. Cohn, I see you.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Beatty, or excuse
Here.
me, Chair Beatty. Thank you. Councilmember Brost.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Boland.
All right, thank you. Does the Department of Planning have any opening comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and thank you. First of all, before beginning the department's presentation, I'd like to thank all the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission for their attendance. Obviously, 5 o'clock isn't the prime time to meet, but we sure do appreciate it, and I know the petitioner does as well. Tonight, we are looking at a project that began back in October 2021. That is when the public hearing was held on the request for the change in the regulating plan of the town center plan to allow residential units, and then the rezoning of the property from a commercial district to a residential district. Ultimately, the city council approved an ordinance in March of 2022 to accommodate this project. Tonight, in advance of this meeting, the department has provided to you a number of items. First and foremost, we did include the planned residential development overlay district for this project, which contains the conditions for its development. Secondly, we provided the plan sheets that were submitted by the petitioner's engineer and design team. Included with those plans is the landscape concept for the site, and that I believe is maybe the last sheet in that grouping of plans. Also, along with that, we received 3 other items. One is a collection of letters from all the utilities, which is required as part of the site plan review process, and also a geotechnical report, which has been considered and will be considered further by the Department of Public Works. And then finally, the Phase 1 environmental assessment. So a lot of information to consider. And obviously tonight, the department will present what it's been doing since that March 2022 date. And then obviously the petitioner's engineer and design team are here, and they can help with any questions you may have in this regard as well. Very briefly, this project is a combination of 5 lots plus a common ground area. The common ground area serves as the location of the underground detention facility for stormwater purposes, and also was calculated toward the public space as part of the original project. The original project was to be basically 7 office warehouse type buildings. 2 were constructed, the remaining 5 never proceeded forward. They were subject to the Great Recession and a number of other things that came along, including multiple ownerships, defaults, other ownerships, etc. As I said, in 2021, McBride Homes came forward and wanted to construct 18 row houses. The row houses in configurations of 3 or 4 units attached, and serving them are rear alleys that will access a 1-car garage that's at the lower level of the proposed townhome or single-family detached home. Along with that, there is New College Avenue, which was constructed by the previous developer and does have the city's required streetscape. The same can be said for the portions of the project that abut West Avenue. The streetscape has been constructed there as well. With that information, the department has been reviewing the plans to ensure that all components of the site-specific ordinance have been met. We spent a great deal of time looking at the geotechnical report And the geotechnical report does identify that there are some bedrock close to surface, that there's a great deal of fill material, which we knew because of the pre-development of the site by the commercial user. And then finally, some limited plastic soils. The geotechnical engineer notes that these all can be resolved and should not preclude the development of the site. Also in the phase one, it's noted they found no environmental hazards or anything that would preclude, again, the full use for residential purposes. The Architectural Review Board will eventually review the units themselves for the architecture, but again, this is town center, so there are new urbanism requirements. That's why each of the units will have front porches. All of the units will have fiber cement siding with backer board, more commonly known as hardy board. They will have architectural shingles of a 30-year or greater lifespan. All stacks and vents on the roof will be painted to match the roof shingles. The foundation walls will also be painted to match the siding color. And all of them will have a front porch of a minimum depth so that it is usable for sitting, having chairs on it, etc. The Planning and Zoning Commission was thorough in ensuring that the materials for these units, although not typical units for town center, had the same qualities as every other residential dwelling that has been proposed and constructed in the city of Wildwood. Public space is provided, and in that public space, there is additional parking areas for visitors. There's also bicycle racks and a trash receptacle, and there are the gang boxes for mail pickup and delivery. So the public space actually could be a usable area for the residents of this particular development, as well as any visitors to the site that may come along as well. All in all, through the review processes of the Department of Public Works and the Department of Planning, we believe the items that need to be shown on the plan are shown in accordance with the site-specific ordinance. And we felt comfortable enough to bring it forward to the Site Plan Subcommittee tonight for its review, questions, and any comments. Mr. Chair, with that, if you'd like to hear from the petitioner's representatives in response to anything that's been said or been submitted, they can be promoted. And then thereafter, any comments or questions from the commission would be welcomed by both parties. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vunich. Yeah, we go ahead and bring the representatives in. Are there any questions from the commission at this point? Commissioner Helfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Bunich, for all of that information you just gave us. And while I do remember this, I'd like a little refresher, if you don't mind. On this drawing, where are the, I guess you can't see my computer, sorry. I'm looking at the site plan drawings, and I'm wondering, where are the trash receptacles on those two? Is there one on each side of the street? And then I also am curious about on-street parking, because my personal comment at the very beginning of all this was I just didn't think there was enough parking. And, I defer to the experts on that. So those were the two things that I was concerned about. And this is the same amount of units that we approved, correct? That's it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. In response to your first question, both the benches and they're benches and bicycle racks, no trash receptacles, my apologies. Benches and bicycle racks. And as you go in the alleys to access the rear of the units, next to the parking spaces, the visitor parking spaces, that's where the benches and bike racks are located. And so those will be accessible to the residents as they come out of their garages, or visitors when they come, they can basically access the parking lot or the benches and bicycle racks. So from that perspective, my apologies.
That's okay, but for the top, there's 7 units and there's just 2 visitors parking spaces. Is there on-street parking on both sides of the road?
Given the width of the road, there will be no on-street parking. Or if it occurs, certainly it'll require the other driver to go into the oncoming lane. And so it's just a narrow street. It wasn't intended to have on-street parking. That's why the commission required the addition of those, what I see now is about 12 spaces for visitor purposes.
Right, the other ones are just on the other side of the street. There's no way we can get any more visitor parking spaces on the north side of the street at all. If you were coming to visit someone on the north side of the street, I don't know that you would necessarily know there was parking on the opposite side of the street. And, if you have a party or friends over, that doesn't leave any place really for them to park.
Well, I wouldn't advocate this, but certainly, as you can see, the commercial projects, the two buildings that were constructed first, they encroached into this particular area with their parking lots. So certainly, if there is a large party of some nature, the commercial lots will probably be available, given that the occupancies in those two buildings aren't full. I would also suggest that there may, just because of the water quality basin and the shape of the remaining ground, it's very difficult to add any more spaces on the north side. We could certainly look at it from the commission's perspective on the south side and do signage.
Well, that's my biggest bone of contention with this whole thing is parking. Because I just think that if you have, even though there's a driveway, what is the width or the length from the driveway to the street? Is that maybe one car length? And so I just feel like there should be some more public parking for visitors and company. And if nothing else, if that one property has their parking lot over the line, then maybe the builder of this property should reach out to them. And, I'm certainly not telling them they have to, but it would probably be for, thinking ahead if they contacted them and maybe work something out with signs. So sorry, I just have a big family and we need lots of parking. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Well, Ms. Helfrey, a couple of things. As part of this plan, which acts as the preliminary plat for subdivision purposes, it is intended that the encroachment of those two parking lot areas onto the subject site will be adjusted so they're no longer off-site parking. But what I was referencing is, when people come and there's a parking area that's not being used, they'll incline to use it for the couple of hours or whatever they're there. Certainly parking is a concern, but I would just identify again that there's one garage space. And then as you can see, even in the majority of the cases with the units, there's another space available that is the driveway approach into the garage. So each of them have at least two parking spaces, one covered, one not. And then we've added, as you've been told, we've added additional visitor parking spaces in the general vicinity.
Commissioner Broyles?
Yes, Joe, I have a question about the mailboxes. Is it a metal box where the north side has their huge box, and the south side has a huge box?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Commissioner Cohn?
I just wanted to add to the comment that Mr. Vunich made about parking. The commercial building that adjoins the project, their hours of operation are probably a lot different than when people would have guests over like evenings and weekends. That was it.
I would concur with that. These aren't going to be, well, maybe they're bigger than I'm thinking they are. I was assuming they were going to be similar to the size of the units over in Ellisville, but it looks like they might be a little bigger. I was just going to say these are starter units, and so maybe there will be some parties, but they're not huge houses. They're small homes, and so go ahead, Commissioner Helfrey.
What is the size of each home and how many bedrooms? Average, just average, not specific.
Ms. Helfrey, I would ask Mr. Faulkner or Mr. Stewart to answer that if they could.
Okay.
Go go ahead. Do either of you guys have an answer on square footage yet? You're muted.
I don't have the actual square footage of those houses. Maybe Taylor has that information.
Trying to look it up real quick. I didn't remember the actual size of them.
You know how many bedrooms they have?
Ms. Helfrey, if we can't find it tonight, it'll certainly be part of the report that's prepared for the commission's consideration.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm looking at, I was just gonna say, I'm looking at page 8 of the packet, and there's numbers of like 1,600 to 2,000 square feet. Is that the lot size, or is that the?
Yeah.
That's the lot size?
Yes.
Oh, okay. In that case, I lived in these, a very similar product to these over in Ellisville before I moved out here. And our place was about 1,400 square feet, I believe. And it was 2 bedrooms with a loft. I think there may have been a 3-bedroom option, but I don't know.
Other questions?
Okay, so on the lot drawing here where it says 2113 square feet, is that the house? On lot number, on unit 18?
That's the lot.
these are about- That's the whole lot or that's the house?
That's the lot size, Ms. Humphrey.
Okay, okay. Okay,
And again, we can get that information if Mr. Faulkner or Mr. Stewart can't find it tonight. We can get that from McBride Homes and provide it to you.
thank you very much.
Commissioner Clayton?
Yeah, I was curious about trash pickup. Looking at the site plan, would we think that trash would be picked up in the rear? Because it looks like to get it out the front would be troublesome for some of the units that are landlocked. And if we do it in the rear, is that going to be a problem for the trash company to make that turn?
Mr. Clayton, in other instances in town center where we have alleys, that is where the trash pickup occurs. And with Waste Connections being franchised by the city, so to speak, we were able to tailor the types of trucks that they use on certain streets. It's not to say they won't use the larger ones here, but if it doesn't work, there are smaller trucks that were part of the city's contract.
Great, thank you.
That's a very good question because, my old place, we had rear yard trash pickup, but our alleys connected all the way through to both ends of the complex. And particularly that north one, just being a T, getting in and out is going to be difficult if they have very big trucks, I believe.
Well, if the site plan subcommittee members would like, I'll send a copy of the plan over to Waste Connections, or I'll ask Mr. Brown to do that, our Director of Public Works who oversees the contract, just to get an opinion.
Okay.
Joe,
Yes, sir, Mr. Brown.
I'm just going to suggest you might have our engineers take a look at that. I don't expect that to be a problem, but they may maybe be able to take a closer look at the issue of trash trucks and access to the alleys. I'm guessing it would be fine, but they could probably look at that.
Consider it done, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I guess with those homes on the north, there's no way to squeeze the homes closer together and have the alley do a U around the whole block of them, is there? Oh, Mr. Stewart?
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to let you know that I did find the house plan, and the first floor is roughly 596 square feet. And so the second floor would be 596, so it would be about 1,200 square feet is for the home size.
All right, thank you.
How many bedrooms do they have?
First floor.
It's okay. I just.
Yep, I was trying to find the second sheet of the plan, and I don't have the second sheet. I was only given the first sheet, but I can get that over to you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Broyles?
Yes, this question is directed to Mr. Brown. I think he's still on. It might be important to check when that bus comes through that area, and it does stop on Highway 109 for students in particular, and a few people that are take the bus for some of those restaurants around across the street. I've seen students sitting on that bench several times, but I don't know. I don't remember what their time frame is, but they do come through there, and then they go on back through down at the light, make a right-hand turn, and back on Manchester Road. That may be an issue sometimes. Maybe that was a comment and not a question.
Well, I think your comment is noted. Joe and I can talk about that and potentially reach out to the school district for sure.
Were you referring to the school district buses or the?
No, not the school district buses, the city buses that come in, and they deposit some students and pick up students there, but I don't know what their time frame is. And I think that's something that we ought to take a look at, approximately what time. They don't sit on New College Avenue. They sit on facing north on 109 when they get to that bench area. That's where a pickup is and where they drop off either students. I saw one student walking the other day and sitting there on the bench.
Do they lay? I didn't realize they really laid over there. I thought they usually laid over by Deerberg's.
Well, they didn't lay over there. They sit there for a minute on 109.
Yeah.
And if there's not a student, then they will go on forward. But
Oh,
you're right, their layover is over by Deerberg's off of Taylor. But they're pretty big buses. And if I'm right next to it, there's not a whole lot of room if they're right at the end of the street there. I just think the time frame would be helpful to know for those residents there that are living there.
Oh, I mean, it runs on I think like 5:30 to 10 or so. Last I looked. I mean, it may not come all the way. I know it comes out to, well, I guess it runs, if it's coming to Taylor Road, it's going all the way over there. But yeah, I mean, it runs all day.
Well, but people moving in and out of there, we're going to have a lot more cars. You know, if you figure at least a minimum of 2 per unit, I think it's something we need to just know what that answer is. Thank you.
Commissioner Helfrey?
So before I go to my next point, just as a follow-up, you just said, Commissioner Boyles just said, you know, we're assuming a minimum of 2 per unit. There's only parking really for just about that plus 7 more cars. So I know that I won't bring up parking anymore. I just think that I think it's going to be a problem. My other question though is for you, and that is when we did the town center meetings and things, I thought we talked about alleys, and I was just curious who would be responsible for the maintenance of these alleys and the trash collection. If we're going to have the trash people and stuff going back there, who would be responsible for the maintenance and care and snow removal of those alleys? Thank you.
Ms. Helfrey, as part of the town center planning process, as you'll recall, one of the first items the volunteers voted on, and it was a very close vote, was to have all alleys become public. And so if that were to be the case, the city of Wildwood would be responsible. We've not yet accepted any of the alleys that were dedicated as private for public purposes yet. It's not that we've been contacted by Windsor Crest, and it's being considered. And in terms of trash collection, this would be Waste Connections.
So when they build this, then they would need to build it to the standards of our streets as opposed to what, I guess, wasn't that one of the issues that we had?
Well, we actually have a standard for an alley in the town center plan.
Councilman Brost?
Yeah, I guess it begs the question, do the alleys then meet the standard?
I'll defer to Mr. Brown if he wants to speak to it, but we won't let the plan move forward for a final action of the Planning and Zoning Commission if they don't.
Okay, well, that's fine. And then also the maintenance, would that include the additional parking spots? Would that also be a city responsibility?
I would argue it is not, sir, just because, again, the alleys, the access way will define it as such. The parking should be, again, the responsibility of the homeowners association. And I failed to mention in my opening remarks, this particular community will have common maintenance of all exterior areas, including the dwellings themselves.
So the driveways and the additional parking would be the HOA.
That would be my position, and that's how I would ask the petitioner McBride Homes to identify it on the record plat.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Mr. Faulkner? Yeah,
Just
go
wanted
ahead.
to point out that the alleys, typical section is on the cover sheet of the site development plan. It's on the lower left corner, I believe, per city specs.
You were kind of cutting out there, but I think you made the point that it does say per city specs on the plan sheet.
Correct.
Okay.
And again, members of the subcommittee will verify that as part of our final check before a recommendation is presented to the commission.
And just a comment from me about the parking. These are, from my experience in Ellisville, there's going to be a lot of single people in these homes. I don't believe it's going to be very many married couples. So I think generally you'll be seeing one car per unit, as probably more often than not.
Well, what I can offer to the subcommittee is the Department of Planning, along with Mr. Brown, we'll kind of go through the scenario of total spaces available both in the garage as part of the driveway approach to the garage, and then what we believe are the available spaces in the vicinity. We'll give you a tally so you have a better idea.
And I'm guessing there's no parking in the alleys either, correct?
Well, the cross section shows them as 20 feet in width. If you park a car, it doesn't leave a whole lot of space. Usually it's about 8 or 9 feet in width that we calculate. So conceivably, if someone were to park in the alley, there's still a 12-foot, 11 to a 12-foot lane. I don't know how Mr. Brown feels about that. I'd kind of like to hear his opinion.
Actually, Joe, I was thinking about that thing a little bit. The alleys as you come off of New College are 24 foot in width. You might be able to fit a car or two in there actually. But we can talk further about it. I've got another idea as well, maybe that we can pursue.
Mr. Stewart?
Thank you, Commissioner. Hey, Joe, just as a reminder, the fire department let me know that there is no parking in the alleys and we'll have to post no parking signs. So just wanted to clear that up right now.
Mr. Stewart, good information. We have another authority saying, keep them clear.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Stewart, I'll ask you. I mean, what's your opinion of the level of parking needed for a development like this?
Well, I did just find the second story of where the bedrooms are in these units, and most of the units are just 2-bedroom units. And I do know that, you know, McBride hopefully will present these more to young professionals, like you were saying, that just have single units. But as far as, you know, the parking, we can look at it as we keep going and the water quality basins and what MSD requires. And if we can sneak in more parking on that north side, we will. You know, we'll work with the city staff on that. But as far as the neighbors go, we have been in talks with them on multiple issues. One being presenting the land and being able to boundary adjust the line. And we can also talk with them, you know, about the overflow of parking into their lots and just kind of touch base with them as far as that. But, you know, obviously I can't promise anything because I can't speak for the adjoining commercial sites.
Correct. Although there's, I don't know, I kind of hate all of the parking or anyway. And yeah, because these people are going to want to park here nights and weekends. The commercial lots are generally vacant nights and weekends. That seems like a whole lot of wasted asphalt to me to not be able to share the two of them.
Yes.
Are there any more questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, if there are no other questions or comments, the department would respectfully request the motion and second to prepare the recommendation report regarding this particular item, acknowledging all the comments that will be addressed in the report, for the September 6th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
All right, Commissioner Helfrey.
I'll make the motion to have the city prepare that. And just a follow-up question real quick. Will we see the front elevations of these at all, Mr. Bennett?
I'll ask McBride Homes to provide the elevations. And then we did get some photographs of them as part of the hearing process. I'll see if they've updated them or if they have anything that is a little better.
Okay, thank you. And I did make a motion.
Yep. And the second by Commissioner Clayton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, thank you. So I think that's all for right now. So motion to adjourn. Motion by Commissioner Helfrey, second by Councilman Brost. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned. See you in 23 minutes.
Thank you all again.
Commission
Same link.
members, it's the same link for the next meeting. So we'll just leave it running and see you in a few.
Okay.
And I will not be there.
All right.
Thank-
Have a good night
For
then.
the record on these meetings, I always thought that this is a special group of the P and Z did this. That's why I never showed up before. I didn't think it.
We
Until the
are
last meeting.
special.
Well, you
We
are
are
special.
special.
So I could have made most of them.